Yo, hi Amitu. We made
Yeah,
it to
man.
episode 2. ठीक है,
Yes, finally.
finally. So the first one was the first. ठीक है, now what do you do for the second? Maybe we can just skip the intro first. ठीक है. I'll throw up an image. Maybe if somebody is curious, probably they can read or not. ठीक है. So yeah. So I'll start with first thing. Uh, so I see so many people struggling with loneliness in today's time. Okay, open Reddit and you'll find hundred of posts about it, right?
Hmm.
There's so many reasons for this, but I think we are losing that sense of community which we had probably in earlier days. Okay, मतलब that's the reason I see a lot of WhatsApp or Discord communities, right? But I think the problem is these communities are very niche, right? Like a gaming community, right? They'll talk only about games, right? मतलब, it's hard to have a very deep conversation there, right? Probably, probably a book community, you can have some deep conversation there, right? In a book community, right? But not in all communities, right? And we have so much to talk about, right? Like I'm not talking about opinions, ठीक है? We have that a lot, ठीक है? ठीक है? Everyone has opinions on everything, but the thing is, things that are happening in our lives, right? We don't have that to share, right?
Hmm.
So, so last year I came across a post from someone, ठीक है? मतलब probably US, ठीक है? So I reached out to him and we chatted, and then he shared his method, kind of a upgraded version of a support group, right? ठीक है? He has made a complete framework and he even sent me a document, ठीक है? So the title goes like how to change your world, six
Hmm.
blokes at a time, ठीक है? So
What at a time? One
blokes,
person at a time.
blokes, person, मतलब good person, I think it means.
Hmm. Right.
ठीक है. So the first step is basically choosing the right people, making this group basically, right? So choosing the right
Hmm.
people. So what do you mean by right people, right? So think of the guys in your life who have their basically shit together, right? Sorted people, stable people, right? Also, if it's good if people are there in probably similar stages of life, right? Like for example, if you don't have kids, and if everyone has kids, then they'll talk about that, and you are basically odd one out, right? And then the second step is basically having a safe place, okay? uh, Pick a place where you can stop without interruptions basically, right? Okay, where you can be loud, probably curse also, right? And there's not an issue, right? So now comes the rules, okay? So the most important rule is commitment, okay? uh, People can start with a trial, let's say come for three meetings or something, and then probably they can sign up for another 6 months or something like that, right? But why commitment is important, okay? So commitment is important because it builds trust, first thing, right? If I know you'll show up no matter what, right? I'll feel safe enough to open up, right? And let's say when I open up, it makes easier for you to do the same also, right? That's how a real support system works, right?
Hmm.
And the other reason is कि people tend to disappear when things get tougher, right? uh, so first few meetings तो it's like a honeymoon phase, right? Everyone मतलब we're just talking on surface levels, right? But then when we start talking about the grief or humiliation or loss, like for example things from our past, right? ठीक है? Many people back out. Somebody's मतलब they are too busy with family, or they have work or something like that, right? So so yeah, that's why commitment is very important, okay?
So I would say we can go deeper into those. There would be
Okay, okay,
obviously
okay.
lot of detail, but let's still analyze it much higher level, right? Like the first part is the main part, right? Having even such a group,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And and have like the commitment portion, like having some sort of regularity towards such a. I totally kind of like agree with your high level. Or the earliest problem is that, right? The problem of loneliness, right?
yeah,
That exists, and obviously, if you can create such a thing, you could just do anything with that group, and your lonely problem could be solved, right? Like the whole point of loneliness is that you do not have people who are kind of and it's to me it's really tricky. Like all those criteria that you also mentioned, right? There should be like people should be in the similar walk of life.
yeah,
You cannot just be that group cannot be anyone.
yeah.
So it's very. how do you do that? Like that's what I think. How do you form that group? How do you go from yourself to that group? Obviously, you can argue there's a natural or organic way of thing, right? You make friends with people you work with and in your neighborhood and probably your school friends or family relative extended that group of. So but is there such a thing you believe that we are becoming like such groups are not forming? What were we doing earlier, right? Is this a modern phenomena that people are becoming more lonely? All sorts of mental health related stuff, all sorts of I feel like there's a, for all you know, there might be no loneliness problem. It's a simply anxiety problem that you have anxiety about being like feel like if I look at my parents, etc., maybe they were almost as lonely other than the children aspect, right? Just that key, they were probably not worried about that fact. Maybe the problem is not the problem. The problem is that we are worried about it, right? We should be spending time with people and we are not. And we can totally look at contrast. Like earlier, we probably were spending time with more people. Now we are spending time with less people. But is that a problem or is that just a fact of life? No, I'm just trying to get at, is that new or is it like what always have been happening, right? Like, is it just a phase of life, fact of life, or is it like social media addiction, for example? It's totally brand new problem, right? There are a lot of brand new problems. I'm just trying to understand, is it could be that all of us are too addicted. We're getting all of our dopamine and stuff
Yeah.
through this. Earlier we were like
Easy
forced
access.
to hang out with each other because there was no other way to get new information and new, right?
Yeah.
Somebody was like, Joe Rogan used to be always some 20-year-old in your friend group, right? We suddenly have a Joe Rogan, so we don't need that 20-year-old in the friend group who has some random theories and random
Yeah.
stuff, right? So
Even
maybe it's
movies
all
and everything.
arising. It's all arising from social media. Actually, when I think about this topic, I remember that Anathem, it's basically a science fiction about future, but it kind of feels like it's in the past. So there's this, they have this, what do you call, ashram of sorts. I don't know what do they call it. I think they had some other term. But the idea was that there was this mutt. Sorry, they used to call it mutt. So mutt is the Indian mutt wala, whatever mutt I think. So it basically had these rules that mutt was like a sanctuary or like a place where you can go, and it had walls. It had like concentric walls, you can imagine, and they were like outer. So you're outside the mutt, and which is a regular world like you're living, and then the first wall opens. Let's say I think every month or every week or something. So the gate of the outermost uh, section of the mud opens once every week. So you can go inside, and when you go inside, you're basically giving a commitment that I'll live there inside the mud for a week. And then there's a next gate which is like a month. Then there's a next gate which is 6 months and 1 year and so on, right? So there are muds, rooms, there are gates which open once every 1,000 years and so on. Obviously nobody lives for that long, but the idea was that this was purely about information, right? Like the information, like what is the point of 1,000-year door? The people who are living in that, the innermost this thing, their information is whatever information they had 1,000 years ago, right, of the outside world and so on, right? So it kind of very so I find it very fascinating. I feel like, why don't we have that? Would you like, if we had such a mud, would you want to spend a week, right? Because this would
Yeah.
be a week with everyone who has like suspended their life, and they're like, okay, I'll go and just be there. So that the rules are that you can take whatever you want, but it mostly is just information books and not like a phone or you cannot communicate. So once you go inside, you are inside that 1 week. So everyone is in that 1 week. For 1 week, you can talk to each other, and then at the end of the week, you will either choose to stay back there or you will come out. Right? That's your choice. But you don't have, and they had some provisions for health, whatever related stuff you can. And people also would come for repairs and maintenance. It's not really like the doors can never open. But it's mostly like a bunch of people self-imposed rules. Basically, it's not nobody is really stopping you. You cannot just go inside without how do I say following. Like you cannot go from outside to straight to 100-year room. You have to uh, go through this process. So I don't know. It's not about lonely. I'm trying to say, but maybe I don't know. We should have that, right? Like I hear about these random people who will go on like 15 days and just work out and or whatever, right? So that's imagine if that we had that, right? The group that you're talking about. Imagine if you can just like figure out some way, and among our friends also, we can just say and you can argue that like earlier when we had like in my village, we used to have let's say what is called a Ramayana part, right? So when the part used to happen, it used to be 3-4 days, and like the entire family used to. It was kind of almost compulsory because you're saying not you're not saying no to the get together. Saying no to that religious thing, right? So it had that angle, and I do remember that virtually everyone used to kind of not miss it and so on, and that used to be like really like the highest time of my childhood because there were like so many people suddenly, and 3-4 days you can manage, right? So
By the way, I मतलब इसी पॉइंट मतलब जस्ट अपडेट पॉइंट बट आई yesterday I watched a very good movie लिटिल वुमेन एंड उसमें एक बहुत अच्छी लाइन थी अराउंड दिस ओनली मतलब बेसिकली इट्स अ नॉवल ऑल्सो तो बेसिकली तो जो मेन प्रोटैगनिस्ट होती है शी डज नॉट वांट टू गेट मैरिड ठीक है एंड शी इज़ लाइक
They have minds and they have souls as well as just hearts, and they've got ambition and they've got talent as well as just beauty. And I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it. But I'm so lonely.
you can't have it both ways. See, the only other thing I can say is like all the problems in life becomes like suddenly like nothing if you have something else which is a priority, right? Like if you have like some major thing coming up tomorrow, right? So you'll forget about all the other problems. So that might be just a hack and that priority. You have to figure out what is that priority for you. If you are on a sort of like a mission, like I have to, like for example, for me, till fifth try becomes like a money making thing, till Fastn gets whatever it is, right? So for me, every other thing is just like, okay, I'll deal with that, but this is my real thing, right? Like to me, my focus 100% is on this, and all the other stuff is like, okay.
बट दिस थिंग ऑल्सो ना कि वो हायरार्की ऑफ नीड्स बोलते हैं ना उसको पहले बेसिक नीड्स आता है फिर सोशल नीड्स आता है हैव यू सीन
But you
दैट
are not in that need, no? Matlab, you are, how do I say? Most of us are lucky enough to have a proper house and all of
तो
that basic
बेसिक
needs
नीड्स
met.
हमारी फुलफिल्ड है बट सोशल नीड्स ठीक है
I think that's what that's so that I will say ki trumps this mission that you have will trump. You cannot be on the mission if you don't have food,
या
but you can be on a mission if you're lonely. That's what I'm saying. If you're alone, if you do not have other stuff, I believe that is powerful enough motivator to force you to not think about these things.
now there's this structure how to talk how to conduct this meeting ठीक है so the first thing is basically start with something positive ठीक है मतलब surface level things basically like for example what is happening in your life ठीक है and it could be very simple things like for example I've opened up my bank account ठीक है I've got my car fixed something like that right very positive things basically ठीक है then basically then starts the main discussion where everyone gets a turn to speak ठीक है and basically anyone can be a facilitator you मतलब we can rotate and everyone ठीक है and being a facilitator you can suggest a theme or something like that right and but if someone has some pressing issue or burning issue right they can talk about that ठीक है and what do other guys do basically they listen and they don't need have to interrupt or probably ask questions only facilitator can ask questions ठीक है probably to get it started right ठीक है and basically then there are rules for sharing we should generally use whenever somebody is talking also, like for example, uh, complete confidentiality, so it's a different thing, ठीक है, but like making the I statements, ठीक है, like I feel really angry that this thing happened, don't talk in third person or something like that, right, ठीक है, also uh, like avoid giving others power over your feelings, like for example, he makes me so mad, right, ठीक है, basically take responsibility of your own things, ठीक है, तो this thing is very important, like make only the I statements, ठीक है, and the other important thing is basically don't give solutions or advices, ठीक है, when you are sharing don't refer to other people's material, ठीक है, कि for example if something happened with his dad don't take into that, ठीक है, मतलब you can just talk about कि dads के साथ ऐसा whatever, but don't bring him
Don't
into,
react. You just act. Only act.
yeah.
Don't react to what other people are saying. And, yeah.
नहीं ऑल्सो मतलब पीपल हैव दिस थिंग ना कि मतलब कनेक्ट करने के लिए, ये करने के लिए he'll bring their story into their conversation, right, don't do that, मतलब it's not important, basically you are just और पोक कर रहे हो basically.
So those things that you're describing is general problem with how to communicate. We don't know.
हाँ हाँ
And
वो
all
तो
those
yes,
things happen all the time. That
yes,
you
yes.
like. So as we're building Fastn, which is a language for kind of like common people, everyone, and Fifth Try is a platform for everyone, right? And we are in the process of building some sort of like a brand new, how do I say? So the Fastn kind of thesis is that every app has to be kind of rewritten for our in Fastn, because this gives you security and this gives you. So if you look at the general problem statement, is that if you want to run a server, right? So for mobile, we have solved this problem that people can install apps, right? So that is solved. iOS, Android, we have at least two big ecosystems, and the apps that you install are largely safe. iOS is slightly more safe than Android, but both of them are kind of largely safe. But unlike on the other hand, if you want to install something on anything else, let's say on desktop or on server, it is highly unsafe, right? So, like consider Windows, so many viruses like spread all. So it's a very bad idea. For example, you to ask your parents, you can install apps, right? You have to just tell them don't. And if you think about server, it is just unmanageable because server means Linux, and Linux can not be managed by even you and me. We have a hard time managing servers and keeping them secure, right? Like you will probably be very scared of exposing a server on internet that you're accessing from all over the world, right? So in our this thing, it is like the way iPhone, iOS ecosystem kind of, or Android ecosystem kind of came up by asking you to rewrite all. So you don't have your regular Windows app or Linux app just running on Android or iPhone, right? So they have to be kind of rewritten. So we are like thinking in that term only. The only way to solve the problem of anyone can just install apps on their own, on their website, right, and be secure, right, is to kind of rewrite those apps from scratch. And for that platform to exist, you have to have a sort of like an ecosystem of ready-made apps. So last week we did this app that you see, the talk, the meeting that is happening, this is on Amitu.site, which will be Amitu.com very soon. Is basically a site on which I have installed this Meet app or Talk app or whatever. Uh, Today only we added this new thing. Right? So we have built this new app called. So this is an app which is basically social media updates. Right. So to install this app, you have to do these things. So it's not iPhone, iOS, Android, like where there's an app store and you go and just drag and drop and do stuff. Maybe we'll create something like that at some point. But currently, and we actually strongly believe in that, you should have basic literacy, right? Like I'm saying, if all you have to do is write a few lines of code like this, if that is all you have to do, and then trying to put a UI is making because UI it's very cumbersome to write a UI, right? So very few UIs get written, which is reliable, which is maintained. Like who is writing the Whereas if you look at Linux and Python scripts, it's so easy to write a random Python script. than to write a whole app. So that's basically what I'm saying. So the real power will come, and we all can kind of casually write software and stuff. And we are doing it by basically saying, okay, if you have to add this particular feature, so if you already have auth enabled on your site, so this would already be on your site, and all you have to do is add this particular thing. Maybe I can show you the history also, right? So I added this 2 days ago, right? As you see, I added a new file, brand new file. This is a 2-line file, right? So it can be as simple as that. And then I added this, made these modifications. So the modification is we added these 2 lines here and these 3 lines here, right? So this is a total thing I have done, and this has created this. So if you look at it carefully, we are saying /updates now. This new URL basically has this particular app. So if you go to the /updates, you can see this is the updates app, right? So you can see these are my kind of updates, and I can write new updates. Yeah. So the beautiful thing here is because it is just code, this can be virtually any kind of thing, and you I have kind of given very limited access to these. If you look at this particular app, I've given very limited access to this. So this is the code of this guy, and because of the WASM and other stuff that we have probably discussed in the previous call, basically this app has only access because of WASM, right? So because how are we getting security? We're starting from security is needed for your parents to reliably or comfortably install apps. How do you get security? If you install a typical app, typically has access to complete everything from your user, right? If you're running that app as your user, whatever your Linux user has access to, that is accessible to that app. So here we are saying, we are saying the way browser is there, browser doesn't have access to everything I can do on my machine, right? On my machine I can do so much, but browser cannot do. Browser has very limited access. Browser can do video, browser can do everything is opt-in, right? So slowly we have fed, and this is a brilliant platform, and that's what we have added capabilities like database, right? So you can do database. Currently, it has access to the entire database. We are very soon going to give you even further restrictions. So, for example, you can only access your own tables, right? Which tables, and even that you will have to explicitly, the owner of the site will have to allow which tables you, and you'll be like, okay, but how can people understand tables, right? How can people? So there's this delta of digital literacy that I am basically saying if you want to use this platform, so these are the two options available to you. Either you say I will never create these updates like stuff, I'll never solve the problem, or I will go to Twitter or other places, right? That's how the world has solved. Or you can spend a few hours learning the syntax, etc. here, and then become completely digitally like self-owning. Like all the data is mine, right? So the update that app that you see, every feed that is created is getting stored in a SQLite database that I own, right? So I have complete access. I have complete access to the source code. All of these things are actually, how do I say, public. So if you go to our repo, you can download the so this whole thing is available on GitHub. You can run this app, or you can modify it to your heart's desire, right? It's a very, how do I say? So yeah. So we are creating this marketplace, or I don't know what do we call it, ecosystem of apps, ready-made apps, and now we have the second app. This app I'm very excited because I feel like updates is probably the most, right? If you think about it, um, uh, people have blogs, people have like, be it Twitter, be it Instagram, all of these things are updates, right? If you look at iPhone ecosystem, it's pretty brilliant, right? Like every app has access to photos, contacts, and in a very privacy friendly way, etc. But Linux doesn't have that, right? Even Windows doesn't have that. Even Mac doesn't have that, right? If on the Mac, if you really want to get access to address book or any such thing, right? So So even things like consider on Apple or Android, your contact is solved problem, right? Any or files is solved problem, right? Any app who wants to do syncing files, etc. Any app can create files, and that will be automatically synced all over. The app doesn't have to do anything at all. But if you create, let's say, Obsidian on Linux or Windows or whatever, right? So they have to worry about how am I going to sync, right? So we are trying to solve it at all levels, in the sense, like for example, the way iPhone does, right, or Android does. They take care of your authentication, they take care of backup, they take care of all the, how do I say, the day-to-day stuff. Versus
One question, Madhu, what do you think about Fediverse?
Fediverse is, see, that's the problem. That Fediverse is, it's not a, how do I say, it's trying to solve some very tiny fraction of the problem, right? Like your bank statement will not be in Fediverse, right? That's what I'm trying to say. It's not a platform for you to build arbitrary software. This is a software just for one particular need. And sure, that should be successful. And I believe Fediverse is done in extremely horrendous way, in the sense that it is not trivial for you to just run a server, right? So if you want to run a Fediverse where you want to be, okay, my.com, all my updates are coming. So look at the total amount of software that you're running to get Fediverse working. You go and try it. It's actually pretty non-trivial to install a Fediverse server from scratch, right? And to maintain it. It's almost like and security issues, etc., are going to be there. And everything is black box. Like they'll just give you Docker. Sounds very easy, but you have to now look at inside every single thing that is inside the Docker and prove that doesn't have any security, no Russian hackers are like trying to whatever, right? So supply chain attack is a big problem. That's why if you trust, or if you take Fastn, all you're trusting is either the Rust compiler or you're trusting that one single repo, right? Everything else is WASM. Everything else is extremely so. So you don't have to trust any WASM. WASM, like when JavaScript runs on your desktop, you don't have to trust it, right? Because it's a good sandbox model. So this sandbox model works brilliantly. WASM model works brilliantly, right? But when you talk about regular POSIX, any ELF, any even Java or Python program ecosystem, then suddenly it is open to all sorts of, how do I say, holes.
ठीक है. Any recommendations?
Have I discussed the Revelation Space novels? No. So I'm a huge fan of this guy, Alistair Reynolds. And in general, he's actually probably a physicist. I think he worked in NASA or somewhere. His science fictions are all space opera and very, very grand space operas, like Star Wars types. But I feel like probably bigger than Star Wars in the sense to the story complexity wise, or world wise, like world complexity wise. So, and he's, I think we discussed humanity, future of humanity. I think we have discussed, I don't think it was discussed in the previous episode, but we have discussed it in the past. How about like one of the novels, House of Suns?
Yeah.
Right? So there the humanity keeps on coming. Like, so there's a bunch of people who can arguably, like the billionaires of current era. Imagine if they have these ships and they go on near light speed, they can be kind of like. So this is a very fascinating thing, right? We can actually go till the end of the universe, right? Like we think we only live for 60 years, and how far can you go in 60 years? Actually, you can go anywhere. You can go to the next galaxy. You can go to a galaxy a billion years, light years away. All you have to do is travel very fast, which will require a lot of energy and other stuff. And obviously, probably you will just be bombarded with enough material that you will die. So you'll have to have very strong material also to absorb the impact of all the stuff. But theoretically, there is nothing stopping you from virtually seeing the end of the universe. Basically, you can travel, and the longer you're traveling, every minute of yours might be every century or every 1,000 years or every million years outside the universe. So you can see how the universe dies if you just travel, right? So these are very fascinating stuff. And he builds in the House of Sun. He really builds a civilization, basically. So basically, there are people who are planet bound who live their normal life, or you become like a light speed bound, where you're almost traveling at a light speed. If you travel at light speed, let's say if you go cross our Milky Way, which is around 100 something 200k, 1,000 light years big, right? So you will reach the other side in 100,000 light years, right? For you, it might have only two days, 1 week might have passed, but for the rest of the humanity, another 100,000 years have passed, and if you come back, another 100,000 years have passed, right? So by the time you come back, you would have aged by, let's say, a week or a year, or depending on how close to light speed you went. But the humanity would have advanced by 200k years, so you'll not have anyone to talk to, right? This is the problem, right? But the thing is, what if all of us, let's say you and me and all of our friends, we decide to go in different directions and decide to meet go back and meet at one place, right, after 200,000 years. So for us, we would have traveled plenty. And so even though we will meeting 100,000 years or 200,000 years in the future, we are all meeting at 200,000 years in the future, right? So, and in the meanwhile, you could have gone here and there and collected more. Let's say if you come back to Earth after 5,000 years, don't go all the way galaxy. So in 5,000 years, the Earth would have progressed a lot. So now you can accumulate all the, how do I say, new technology, etc., that has come, right? And so basically, the regular people go via regular, they do settlements, right? So you'll get tired of Earth or whatever reason, you'll want to go to the next star. And when you go to the next star, you will go and develop, probably your science will develop and so on. So these guys who have left for this long trip, they'll come to that next star. And in that process, they would get the benefits of the scientific and other advancement you have done on that next star, right? Because they have lived for so long. Other star would have progressed through generations, because science takes time, generations, and so on, right? So you cannot progress in a week. So if you decouple yourself from the regular time and you keep time hopping, you can keep coming back to, let's say, Earth every 1,000 years, collect all the best stuff of the Earth, and in the meanwhile, you would have also, because your investment in Earth would become like whatever, right? So, or you could carry gold and all of that resources. So what I'm saying, it's mutually beneficial. So Earth, which is 1,000 years in advance, might welcome you, because you are bringing the true knowledge of what was 1,000 years ago, right? Most likely this knowledge would be lost and so on, right? And you.
But yeah, Interstellar.
What?
Interstellar.
Yeah, so Interstellar, people went nearly at light speed, etc. I don't know how did they go from they went through that wormhole, right? Wormhole. No, they went to the black hole, but they went via that wormhole had come somewhere, I think. Yeah. So they didn't travel at speed light. So they got black hole. So black hole time compression, there's no benefit you're bringing. Right? You're stuck on one point. You are going all over the place. Yeah, you could have done that through black hole also. But
so the book is about this
interplanetary all sorts of travel. Interesting stuff that happens. So this is the premise, and then there's a whole universe. All sorts of. In some there are aliens, in some there are whatever. But the book is very science accurate in terms of like you don't do more than faster than speed of light travel, and that's a very I find if I look at all the science fiction that I've read, that's the future I want to live in. Right? Like not all the other ones is like almost depressing or almost not cool. This is the one that I'm like highly recommend it. His books are pretty awesome.
Okay. Anything else? So I have two things. One thing is a short story called Cat Person. Okay. So it's a 25-page short story. Okay. And it was got published in New Yorker. and it got viral in 2017. And then it started a discussion online because it went so viral. Okay, so and it's a very small story, so you can just read it in one go probably, but it will make you think about
Cat
the
person.
cat person. So it will make you think about sordid behaviors and basically the horrors with what women go through with men and dating basically. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so nice book. So the other thing is a movie called Flow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's an animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about a situation where a flood happens and the cat and the other animals get displaced, but we see the cat
Mm-hmm.
story of the cat through that journey or displacement basically. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and beautiful animation and it has no dialogues. Okay, no dialogues, and it
Mm-hmm.
won basically the best animated this thing, this Oscar this week only. I think it released last week in India.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's there in theater, currently running in theaters, but it's a very good movie. Matlab, the animation of matlab, the behaviors of of all the animals was captured brilliantly. Very good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Now, you mentioned cat so many times that I'm thinking of this Netflix show that I used to watch. I've forgotten the name of that show. And the show is very funky.
Okay.
It was some space, this thing where some experiment went gone wrong, where somebody was going to go in hibernation for a short period, ended up going in hibernation for thousands or millions of years. And when this guy wakes up, he realizes that he had a cat,
Huh.
and that cat had evolved into like an intelligent form. So
Okay.
it's like very absurd kind of like show it was. I don't remember the name. Don't even know what to.
Inside the mind of a cat.
No. It was.
बाय द वे इसी बात मुझे याद आया कि एक नेटफ्लिक्स पे डॉक्यू सीरीज़ है, आई थिंक 3 एपिसोड्स ही होंगे, उसका नाम है डोंट फक विद कैट्स। अब कर आपने देखा
Okay.
है, आई एम जस्ट टेलिंग इट आउट। ठीक है, इट्स अ सीरियल
Cat
किलर।
is a serious.
हाँ,
Cat is a serial
नहीं
killer.
आप बस देख लो बस, मतलब थोड़ा सा माइंड फक हो जाएगा। मतलब डोंट डोंट फक विद कैट्स है नाम, और बहुत ही एपिक, बहुत ही एपिक। ठीक है,
अच्छा.
हाँ।
Got it.
और आई थिंक 3 एपिसोड है मेरे ख्याल से, 3 एपिसोड या ऐसे कुछ छोटा सी है, और डॉक्यू सीरीज है
Yes.
वो।
Docu series है ये.
हाँ, तो डॉक्यूमेंट्री है वो प्रॉपर।
अच्छा. Why we suddenly settled on the cat theme today?
ठीक है, कूल। एनीथिंग एल्स? कूल, चलो फिर, थैंक्स अमित।